जी, can you see my screen, online students?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
ठीक है. अच्छा, मेरे भी इसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम होती है. If I plug in my headphones, then I can listen to students clearly, but without that, it's difficult for me to listen to them. Off कर दूँ? आप कर देंगी? करके देख लूँ. Thank you so much. Sorry for the disturbance. All right, let's continue from where we left. So, किसी को ज़्यादा गर्मी तो नहीं feel हो रही? If you feel hot, feel free to turn them on. कोई problem नहीं. We were talking about the idea of symbolic annihilation. So, the idea of annihilation is clear to everyone, and how it is symbolic, it is also clear to you. So, Touchman considers that cultural productions and media representations. We're talking about the idea of cultural productions, and Nimra gave the example that for example, a drama serial is a cultural production. Similarly, whatever media artifacts you see, they are cultural productions. Music is cultural production. Similarly, drama, this is based on a piece of art, which is writing. It's written by a playwright. That is also like it's all popular culture. And then media representation. So what do they do in the idea of symbolic annihilation? They ignore, they exclude, and then they marginalize. What is the meaning of marginalization? Online students, if anyone want to answer my question, I
किसी
request
चीज
you
को
to.
उसकी वैल्यू से कम करके था.
जी, go Adil, go ahead. Adil, you were saying, जी Fatma, go ahead.
किसी चीज को मैम उसके स्टेटस से कम करके दिखाना, मार्जिनलाइज करना.
ठीक है, शाबाश, very good. Fatima?
I'm going to say the same thing.
The same thing. So Adil said that किसी चीज को उसके status से कम करके दिखाना. The meaning of marginalization is to treat someone as insignificant. That is marginalization. This happens with weak people mostly. This happens with minorities. This happens with transgender people. This happens with children. This happens with people who belong to a different ethnic group. And we know this happened in 1971 with Bengali people. Sometimes this happened with Pashtun people too, unfortunately. This happens with Urdu speaking people or Sindhi speaking people in the province of Sindh. This is marginalization. And here we are talking about women marginalization. When you are considering someone to be insignificant, that's why we talk about the idea of democracy, that everyone counts, every opinion counts, every person counts. Democracy means diversity. This is another meaning of that. Like everyone should have a say. So this is the meaning of marginalization. Now, is marginalization clear to everyone? So media, cultural productions, media representations, they tend to marginalize or trivialize women and their interests. Now, trivialize is the same meaning. Trivialize in Urdu, we use the word mamuli, this trivial. So when you are presenting women as being trivial, that is, you are trivializing them. Not only that, trivializing also means to make simple things complex. That is also trivializing. So media representations and cultural productions, they ignore women issues. Women and their interests, by interests we mean women's issues. You see interests up there at the top. So they ignore, they exclude, they marginalize, they trivialize women and their issues. So women's issues, lack of education is a women issue in Pakistan, right? It's also an issue related to marginalization. How you do not think your women are worthy of getting education, or your women, because education is something that ultimately leads toward your employment opportunities and everything. So you do not want your woman to be independent. So that is marginalization. Have you ever seen a drama serial on Pakistani media industry, which is really, really famous for dramas, which talks about the lack of education, the problem of lack of education in women? Have you have you you may have seen one. I cannot think of even any single drama's name on that issue. Okay? So that is an important issue. Our women need to be educated. Yes, yes. Girls' education. Yeah. That drama is, yeah, is a good example. That also, I mean, that drama was different, especially in women portrayal. The girl wasn't shown as a glamorous figure, or like most dramas do in their presentation of women. Actually, this is not to say that there are all stereotypes. Sometimes dramas and advertisements, they also try to break stereotypes. However, there we see such things happening more often on Pakistani media industry. This is not only Pakistani media industry, actually. Here they are presenting an analysis of American media. And the idea of symbolic annihilation, let me tell you that this comes only in the context of media. By media representation, media tends to do symbolic annihilation. ठीक है? मुझे एक चीज ऐड करनी थी कि इस ड्रामे में भी बहुत सी मतलब मीडियोकर फैमिली की लड़की थी, बहुत सिंपल है और जो इतनी आउटलुक, लेकिन यहाँ पे भी स्टीरियोटाइप्स कुछ ये भी हैं कि कभी किसी ऐसी लड़की को लिखा है जो जिसकी फैमिली बहुत सेल्फ मॉडर्न है और सब कुछ है, लेकिन स्टिल वहाँ पे भी वो थोड़े बहुत पहले थे, वो ज़्यादा नहीं कर पा रही। हाँ, that's correct. That's correct. That's correct. So, which means this is not to say that only women who are suffering from poverty, only they face the problem of lack of education. The problem can also exist for people who are apparently wealthy and they have access to education, but they have somewhat different mindsets and attitudes toward their females. So in short, the next sentence on this slide, it says, in short, women are symbolically annihilated by the media through being absent, condemned, or trivialized. How are women condemned? And what is the meaning of condemnation, by the way? To condemn is to say something bad, like to reprimand someone, reprimand means to disapprove of someone. When you are giving your disapproval, that is condemnation. So for example, if somebody enters this room and starts vandalizing the property, like he starts breaking the lights, breaking the switchboard, and I condemn this, which means I am disapproving of that behavior. So how does media condemn? Examples, please. Yes, Fatma, go ahead.
Ma'am, we see it in usually Pakistani dramas. They show that an empowered woman is not actually a good woman. In most of the dramas, a picture is created or an image is created where an empowered woman or someone who is more liberal is not a good woman, and she's usually the villain in the storyline as well.
Yes. So what Fatma is saying is that in issues related to liberalism and in issues related to like such issues, usually women are condemned, and Pakistani dramas tend to portray this. Let's talk the example of the drama MPTH. मेरे पास तुम हो. Did I tell you Afia Shehrbano Zia's critique on MPTH? So don't you think in the issues related to sexual misconduct, these are women who are usually more condemned than men? See, and I mean, and MP Mere Paas Tum Ho is not the only example for that. We can also find many other examples. So women who, that's the drama serial that talks about female infidelity, right? And in that case, that case actually represents women that in such cases, these are women who should be held more accountable than their male counterparts. That is the idea of condemnation. You see, in women are symbolically annihilated by the media through being absent. If you are showing an uh, so what are, I mean, I gave you the example of lack of education. I said that how many dramas or how many media content you have seen that talks about the idea of lack of female education. Similarly, um, now I think birth control is one of the basic rights of women, that they should have access to that. How many media content you see on media that tells women about this prerogative? So that is, again, if such issues are absent from media debates, the job of media is to serve people by gearing up debates. I do remember. Uh, have you ever heard about this famous drama serial on PTV, Janjalpura? Even if you didn't see that, you may have heard about that drama serial from your parents. That was the only drama serial that I remember in my memory which was related to the idea of population control, if as far as I remember. They did talk about some issues of transgender people too, but that was a kind of side area. The predominant idea in Janjalpura was to talk about the idea of population control. And they show women who are suffering from, who are having difficulties because of large family sizes. They show that they are not healthy enough to take care of their family members. They even they have limitations of resources and all that. In my memory, that was the only drama serial I think that talks about this issue. Other than that, you more often than not, you see the absence of such debates. Time is running out.
And I think the sexual and reproductive health rights, I think birth control and abortion, all these things come in this sector.
Yes.
And I think this come in underrepresentation. These issues are never talked about.
Yes, yes, yeah. And let me tell you one important thing, that these theories, especially these paradigms, you are not feeling like we are driving you away, or you are not feeling like minority. I'm so sorry. So what I was saying that this idea of symbolic annihilation was presented in Western context. And so here you see the debate in the context of American media, what American media does. And by the way, birth control rights and all that, I mean, that are the issues that are usually discussed by Americans. And those societies are very open whenever it comes to this discussion of these type of things. One reason for media ignoring these ideas may be Pakistan's conservative leaning environment, one of the reasons. However, another reason, I think Pakistani media channels are more concerned about ratings, popularity, making money, economic gains, and all that. So let me take you to the next slide. I'll have to sit, I'm sorry for the online students. All right. Again, here we will continue with the idea of symbolic annihilation of women. Cultural representations of women in the mass media support and perpetuate the prevailing sexual division of labor and orthodox conceptions of femininity and masculinity. All right, what is the meaning of perpetuate? What do we mean by perpetuation?
To come into being, for something to come into being.
Fatima, can you please write? I couldn't hear Jibaji. Huh? Not exactly. Fatima, did you write, bache? Huh? Kind of. So to perpetuate means to continue. The way, like the meaning of perpetuation is continuation. So remember we were talking about representation, Stuart Hall's representation. He said that media represents. There are values that exist in societies, and what media does is represents those things. That is representation. So this is how media tends to perpetuate the existing status quo. Status quo क्या होता है? कभी नहीं सुना status quo?
Ma'am, the predominant,
जी बच्चे?
the predominant culture, the status quo that is there and continually exists, but nobody can like break it at times. Like in our country, for example, the elitist
Your
mindset
answer
and
is relevant. However, your answer is very relevant. However, let me just tell you precisely status quo. The meaning of status quo is to maintain the existing order, to let things happen in the way they are already happening. In Urdu, we can say, we use a word, चीजों को जूं का तूं रखना. That is status quo. So, status quo. Now, you see, so when, okay, educational reforms is one of the problems in Pakistan. We say that our educational system is in a shambles and that needs to be reformed. That needs to be improved. So why don't we go for single national curriculum, which means everyone studies the same curriculum. However, wealthy people would oppose that idea that no, our children would reach Cambridge, Oxford syllabus because this affects their status quo. Status quo is to maintain things the way they are, to maintain the existing order. If poor people's children also get to read Oxford and Cambridge, they will also, of course, they will also have access to different opportunities. This will affect their status quo, which means, well, poor people may not stay poor. Wealthy, आप पंखा चला लें बेशक. Poor people may not stay poor. And wealthy people may not stay in power anymore because poor people, when they get education, they will challenge their dominance, supremacy. This is the meaning of status quo. So when media also performs an important role in maintaining status quo, like things stay the way they are. Instead of breaking stereotypes, instead of breaking typecasting, or instead of assigning roles, media maintains the same, media represents the same. Now, how cultural representation of women in media support and perpetuates prevailing sexual division of labor. You must have noticed in dramas, in advertisements even, you see women as housewives, you see women as caregivers, care providers, you see women as someone who stays home raising children. However, you see men as breadwinners, you see men as careerists, you see men as having professional approach. So don't you think that media is perpetuating prevailing sexual division of labor? If you focus upon the idea of division of labor, okay, let's divide this labor. Women will stay home, prepare the meal, raise the children, provide care to everyone in the family. Men will go out and earn the money. Okay? So this is division of labor, and media perpetuates sexual division of labor. Like we barely see, even in advertisements, we barely see any example that a man is changing the diaper of his child and woman comes from outside. That is like media perpetuates, media maintains status quo. All right. And then orthodox conceptions of femininity and masculinity. Now, media maintains orthodox, we all know what orthodox is, the same obsolete ideas that women maybe need to stay in chadar chadiwari, four walls concept and all that. So if media tends to maintain all of that, and that was very visible, quite visible in the time period of General Ziaul Haq, by the way. Time for online students is running out. Fatma, did you raise your hand?
no, ma'am, I forgot to.
I'll go to the next slide for you. This is my last. The reflection hypothesis in symbolic annihilation. Reflect का meaning हमें पता है, if I see myself in a mirror, so I will see my reflection. So media reflect the dominant social values in a society. Media also reflects the same that exists in society. Instead of challenging that status quo, instead of making an attempt to fix the evils, media tends to reflect what the society already holds. Okay? That is reflection hypothesis, which means that anyone, hypothesis of course is a statement that needs to be tested. This is what we mean by hypothesis. So media, again, hypothetically, media reflects. Media works like this is actually reflection hypothesis or reflection working of media. Online students, if you have any question, I have run out of time. If you come across any question, you can send it to me via email. Okay? Otherwise, on Friday, I will, when I begin, I'll have first 5 minutes to take your comments or questions or whatever. बेटे पंखे ऑन कर देंगे आप? Sorry. ठीक है जी. This was the last slide of my lecture. With that, I am going to end. And हमारा भी time हो गया है ना? Almost. ठीक है बच्चे. I'll see you all. मैं देख लूँ comments में क्या है. To maintain or keep up, maybe Hassan was answering status quo. Fatima ने भी ठीक लिखा है बिल्कुल. To continue something, perpetuation. And Muhammad Usman wrote, isn't that because of religious belief? Status quo can be related to anything. We talked about status quo of media. I give you example of status quo in on economic level. So status quo exactly means that when you are trying to maintain the same, like you let things go the way they are already going. You do not change. Change will actually challenge those who are in powerful. Change means